5 Live Formula One.
Good evening and welcome to coverage of Formula One. It's round 21 and it's back to Brazil for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix this weekend. The championship fight in the drivers between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris rages on another round. Just 47 points between them now. The team's championship also hotting up with Red Bull falling down to third after last weekend in Mexico as Ferrari rise up to second behind McLaren. And it's the penultimate sprint weekend too. So we've just had the one practice session earlier where Lando Norris was fastest, but now we dive straight into qualifying for the sprint race, and guiding you through all of the action is myself, Harry Benjamin, former Renault Formula One driver Jolyon Palmer, and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. And Jolyon, actually it's looking a little bit overcast overhead, 20% chance of rain. We know Brazil has a habit of throwing up unexpected weather, so we could be in store for quite a fast and furious session.
It's always a fast and furious session though, isn't it, sprint qualifying? The session lengths are shortened. It's pretty much one run or a squeeze of a second run in each of the parts. So it's always frantic. And then there's a little bit of weather in play as well, which we're expecting throughout the weekend. And there's plenty at stake at this stage of the championship, so certainly one to be tuning in for.
And is it advantage Lando Norris right now after FP1, fastest at the end of the only practice session they get in these weekends?
Well, yeah, he was top of the times, but it's so difficult to really take an accurate read from that. Max Verstappen was quite quick earlier on, was going to be right in the mix as well, but he aborted his soft tyre time at the end, so didn't get a time on the board. I'm still expecting something more from the Ferraris, although neither of them were particularly on the pace at any time earlier on, but their form at the moment is very strong. It's very open, Formula One qualifying at the moment.
It absolutely is. The Ferraris, by the way, in that first practice session, Leclerc and Sainz ended it in 6th and 7th, but really tough to get a proper idea of how the weekend rolls out.
I wouldn't rule out Mercedes either at this stage.
A lot of bouncing problems though for both of those drivers in FP1.
They did. Both drivers throughout the session. Well, Lewis Hamilton for the whole 60-minute session was complaining of the ride quality. George Russell then came on at the end and said, yeah, that was tough. But throughout, their pace was quite good. And remember the Austin sprint qualifying, Russell was on the front row. They're more competitive here, certainly, than they seemed in Mexico.
And George Russell likes it around here as well. The scene of his first win in Formula One. Mentioned the championship battle earlier. Let's just bring you up to speed with the actual numbers. Max Verstappen has 362 points. He's 47 ahead of Lando Norris. Then Charles Leclerc lies third, just 24 points behind Norris. Piastri and Sainz round out the top 5 in the Drivers' Championship. And then in the Constructors' Championship, it's McLaren who lead the way by 29 points to Ferrari, who now lie in second. Red Bull have sunk down to third, with Mercedes and Aston Martin rounding out the top 5. Then there's a fierce midfield battle, firstly between Haas and RB, raging over 6th place. There's 10 points between them at the moment. Then Williams, Alpine and Sauber yet to get off the mark. But as the grandstands begin to fill up around this 4.3 kilometre, 2.6 mile track, 15 corners, 10 to the left and 5 to the right. Andrew Benson, this is this one of your more remarkable racetracks?
It very much is, Harry, very much is. Just wanted to say about the Mercedes, the track temperature has come down by more than 10 degrees since practice earlier today. That's because there's quite a lot of cloud cover now. Its temperature's gone down to just under 22 degrees. And the humidity is quite high. So anyway, the point is the track temperature. That helps Mercedes. They're not good when it's hot, and it actually, still 42 degrees is quite high for a track temperature, but Ferrari have trouble getting their tyres up to temperature in qualifying. That's why they're so good in race pace, because they're good with their tyre wear. So that might swing things a little bit more towards Mercedes and a little bit further away from Ferrari.
Final preparations taking place in the garages before the drivers head out on track. And actually, Johnny, the big news coming in, which doesn't really affect this session, but for the Grand Prix on Sunday, as normal, Max Verstappen will go into it with a 5-place grid penalty. It's only 5 places though, because it's just an engine change. We've seen 10 places, hasn't really stopped Verstappen in the past, so is this just a drop in the ocean?
Well, we also saw 10 places really did stop him in Spa when he had pole position, had the fastest car it looked like, but couldn't make his way through. It's important I think the 5 places. And we saw even in Mexico last week, when Verstappen had the penalties, he took them, came out not far behind the Mercedes, but the Red Bull didn't have the pace to go and chase and overtake Hamilton and Russell. So it's not insignificant, the 5-place grid penalty. What it does is mean that this is actually, I mean, it's critical anyway for Verstappen and Norris, with the title kind of loosely in the balance, but it makes this one his one chance to start at the front of the grid and actually it's a much better chance to take some points away from Norris this weekend.
Well, SQ1 is underway as the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc leads the flurry of cars out onto the track. You can hear the roar from the grandstand as well. Happy to see cars on track on a completely resurfaced track as well, recently so. We'll see how that affects things like tyre warm-up and overall grip across a lap. If you are just needing a little bit of a reminder as to how the sprint qualifying session works, it's 3 sessions still: SQ1, SQ2 and SQ3. Slightly reduced times though, so SQ1 this first session where we will knock out the slowest 5 drivers, just 12 minutes long, already down to 11 minutes before we then go to 10 minutes for SQ2 and 8 minutes in the final top 10 knockout. And in terms of tyres, well, while teams are free to use any of their available tyres in regular qualifying, in this qualifying for the sprint, sets of new medium tyres are mandatory in SQ1 and SQ2. And then in the final part of the sprint qualifying, drivers must run soft tyres, but they do not have to be a new set. We'll keep you up to date and reminded with that, as the sound you're hearing is Charles Leclerc crossing line to begin his first flying lap.
It's a very short lap in Interlagos, and Leclerc breaks at 50 metres on his first attempt, coming into the centre S. The left, the right, down the hill, and flat out on the left once again, building the speed up beyond 170 miles per hour as he opens the DRS and descends towards Destino del Lago. A double left-hander. The main apex is at turn 4, and Charles Leclerc squeezes on the power, and he's flat out through turn 5, which brings us into another quick double apex, right-hander this time, turn 6 and 7, Ferradura.
Round the left-hander, Sainz though quicker in the first sector than his teammates. So the 2 Ferraris once again nip and tuck, and Ferrari in a rich vein of form. 1-2 in the Grand Prix in Austin, and then 1-3 in Mexico last time out. Ferrari now a big player in this Constructors' Championship, going for what could be their first Constructors' World title since 2008. But Leclerc up over the hill out of Junsao brings you nicely over the crest down towards the main straight, which isn't even really a straight, it's on a slight curve, crosses the line. First lap time on the board for Charles Leclerc, a 1:11.654. His teammate will follow. Let's see what Sainz has got. It's not as quick overall, it's a 1:12.2, so actually Sainz losing a little bit of time there, having had a good first sector from him. Tell you what though, it is George Russell, Sergio Perez out on track there as well, who is finding a good first sector. Russell crossing the line to begin the lap now as he delves downhill into the left-hander of this first opening of the centre S, arcs round to the right, and then it arcs again to the left, round turn 3 that shoots you out down the Retta Aposta straight all the way towards turn 4.
It's a very busy circuit as well. All 20 cars out on circuit in this the first part of sprint qualifying. 12 minutes, and it's frantic stuff immediately.
Yeah, well, because it's a sprint weekend, we're straight into the sprint qualifying session, which is underway right now. This will set the grid for the sprint race tomorrow morning. However, it may be Lando Norris that was fastest in the first practice with the first advantage, but never rule out Max Verstappen in their fierce title fight. The Mercedes and Ferraris nip and tuck too. One bit of admin to bring you though for the Grand Prix on Sunday. Max Verstappen, the title leader, will have a 5-place grid penalty for changing his engine. A little bit of a 5 Live interruption there for the hardcore fans with us on 5 Sports Extra. We'll get back into this sprint qualifying. Alex Albon has just gone fastest. Scratch that. Russell was blindingly quick in the middle sector and has found almost a 10th and a half to go to the top in his Mercedes. Let's see if Lewis Hamilton can match him. He's a little bit off his teammate right now, coming through the middle sector, over the hill, out of Junsao, down towards the main straight, passes the pit lane to his left. Sparks flying from the underside of that Mercedes, slots it into second.
Mercedes 1-2 for the moment then. Alex Albon third and Perez fourth. Max Verstappen is the last driver who just begins a flying lap right now, so he's left it the latest. This is the sound of Lando Norris screaming his McLaren up to top spot now. 2/10 quicker than George Russell, and Piastri, Harry's going even quicker.
It really is fastest of anybody in the first sector, round the right-hander of turn 10, the slowest corner, which brings you down towards Jung Sao. Touch on the brakes into the left-hander, fastest of anybody in the middle sector. But Max Verstappen has embarked on his first flyer and has gone fastest of anybody in the first sector now. So Verstappen flying, Piastri 2 in the middle sector, comes across the line now. What has the Aussie got for us? Top of the times with just over 6.5 minutes left, 3/10 clear of Liam Lawson, who is in second for the RBT.
Yeah, Liam Lawson is in second, not for long because Nico Hülkenberg jumps up, but the track is just cleaning up so quickly in this first part of sprint quali that the evolution is meaning every single lap the times are coming down and down. Ollie Behrman jumps up to 9th. He's in for Kevin Magnussen today in the Haas and has got a decent lap under his belt, but he's 7/10 away from his teammate. Here is Max Verstappen now driving to the line. Very good first sector, average middle sector, and over the line he's 3/10 down in 4th.
How's that for a jumbled up top 5? Piastri, Hülkenberg, Lawson, Verstappen and Norris, the top 5 after the first flyers. At risk, Valtteri Bottas in the Sauber, Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin, Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. Didn't have, he had a good first sector, but then I think he must have made a mistake because the lap fell away from him. He's currently down in 18th, only ahead of Zhou Guanyu and Franco Colapinto in 20th.
So what's interesting about that is that Verstappen was the very last driver to go and set that first lap time, and despite that, and with the track ramping up quite quickly, he was 3/10 slower than a McLaren. So I don't know whether that's indicative because it's just the first lap. Maybe he made a mistake, but that's not great for Red Bull on the face of it.
His first sector was rapid. It was a 10th quicker than Piastri, and that is still the fastest of anyone right now. But it's just the Senna S, the first sector, which is effectively one corner really with an acceleration zone through turns 2 and 3, and then it's some straight line speed down towards turn 4. The middle sector is tight and twisty, and that's where you can hit Charles Leclerc coming to the end of right now on a much better lap. He now jumps into the final sector, which is also just one corner, Jun Sao at the end of the lap, and then the speed builds all the way to the line, and the Ferrari driver that's down in 14th is about to jump right up, as is the Ferrari driver that's in 18th, which is Carlos Sainz just behind.
Leclerc, fastest of anybody in the final sector, slots into second place, couple of tenths behind Piastri. This is the sound of his teammate Carlos Sainz out round the final corner, which is really a corner, really hugs the pit wall on the inside to try and shorten the distance to the line. Better lap this time around for Sainz, puts him up into 4th behind Hülkenberg and his teammate Leclerc.
That's track evolution for you then. Ferrari, they were the first team out at the start of the session, and both drivers did a lap that left them a little bit in the lurch. They're now, you'd have thought, safe, but in reality, I wonder who is safe in this one, because you're looking at Verstappen 6th and Norris 7th, 3 and 4 tenths away from the pace, but behind Lawson, behind Hülkenberg, the track's getting better. And I think there's plenty of time for a lot of the midfielders to find to leave some big names in trouble still.
Sergio Perez, who was knocked out in Q1 this time last weekend for the Mexican Grand Prix, currently lies in 11th place, but he's about 6/10 off his teammate Verstappen, who isn't exactly at the top of the times. Verstappen's in 6th, about 3/10 off, just ahead of Lando Norris. But that track evolution, we saw it the same last weekend as well. It really does ramp up at different circuits. How much is that resurfacing this weekend playing a factor here in Brazil?
Well, I think as any sprint weekend on a Friday, it's difficult. You haven't had the 3 hours of practice to rubber in the track. There's only 1 hour earlier on, and then a 3-hour break, and now we're back in. So resurfacing or not, it's always tricky. The grip level didn't seem atrocious earlier on, but it's just the track cleaning up a bit as everyone now crawls out of the pit lane. The Alpine's actually coming to a standstill in the queue that is being led now out of the pits. Charles Leclerc's on the circuit. Plenty of others are now joining him and leaving the pits. There's only 2 minutes 50 left. I think they've given themselves enough time, but this is not going to be doing their tyres any good.
It's going to be tight. We even saw in practice, even if you're on a slow lap, it's still easy to get caught up in other people's laps, trying to bunch up right in the final couple of corners to give yourself, ideally, a little bit of a tow all the way out of Jung Sao. For somebody who's ending a lap, that's the ideal. You get the tow and then you begin your lap.
And this is the sound of Alex Albon. Well, you can just hear him literally idling coming out of the pits in the Williams. So everyone now has one flying lap. to save themselves in SQ1, really. There's barely anyone can look at it and feel safe. Oscar Piastri is still in the pits. He's the last man still in at the top of the times currently. But with the way the track's going, one clean lap now and you'll be through. But if you have a messy lap, there's not a long lap either, you're going to be in trouble.
Drivers who absolutely cannot afford a messy lap and need to improve. Everybody from 16th downwards will get eliminated. That currently is Fernando Alonso, Valtteri Bottas, Lance Stroll, Zhou Guanyu and Franco Colapinto, who I believe made a mistake on his first lap, which is why he's so off the pace and had his lap time deleted for exceeding track limits 2. So him well off and needs another lap then, does Colapinto. But Hamilton begins his fly, and what will be his final fly, so too Perez.
It's a decent first sector from Hamilton. It's a better first sector from Verstappen, and is actually the best of anyone again from Max Verstappen, who jumps up to second place. Still a tenth and a half away from Oscar Piastri, but safely through is Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton looking decent through the middle sector as well, into the slow right-hander of Pico de Pato. His teammate jumps up to 5th.
Albon finding time as well. We shall see Hamilton, Perez and Tsunoda, the next cars across the line. Piastri does top the times at the moment with a minute to go. He's on an out lap right now and will get another go across the line. Perez, fastest of anybody in the middle sector. There's a little bit more like it from Sergio Perez, with the pressure continuing to pile. Hamilton across the line only improves slightly, gets himself up into 8th. Sergio Perez will cross the line now, second place for the Mexican. A 1:10.3 ahead of his teammate. That'll be the last gasp attempt he gets. Tsunoda having an okay lap. That's the sound you can hear right now.
Currently 14th, needs an improvement to jump up. Liam Lawson is in the pits in 8th, but he stayed ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who only went 9th and may yet come under pressure. Norris is now 10th and will be under pressure to improve as well, but Tsunoda doesn't, well, he gets up to 12th, doesn't depose the big guns.
No, and he's got Behrman, Ocon and Gasly all behind him, who are all out there on laps. Behrman with a decent first sector. Gasly's looking fairly strong on his lap at the moment. So too Fernando Alonso, though his final sector, where's that going to put him as he comes across the line for the Spaniard? Up and into 11th spot as he takes the checkered flag, which is now out. So last gasp attempts from those in the bottom 5.
Behrman 14th, but flying right now. He's a 10th down on Piastri through 2 sectors. He opens the DRS, and this could be something special from Ollie Behrman, who drives to the line. It's up to 5th.
Ahead of his teammate Hülkenberg, who's in the pits. Both Hasses looking incredibly strong here. Pierre Gasly, who's had a brilliant run of form since upgrades introduced on his Alpine in the last couple of rounds, gets himself up into 11th, has rather left his teammate Esteban Ocon in the lurch. Can Ocon get through and up into SQ2? He's right on the bubble. He's in 15th. That puts Tsunoda down. Stroll won't progress. Neither will Zhou. Bottas will. Lando Norris is absolutely flying out there. He's down in 12th. Fastest in the first sector. Fastest in the middle sector. Fastest overall for Norris.
By miles. 8/10 clear of the field. So it's Colapinto or Albon in a head-to-head. And if they both improve, it'll be Alonso going out. Albon 3rd. It's Alonso or Colapinto.
Colapinto should be able to get through here. Across the line for the Argentine. Nice run for Franco Colapinto, up into 9th spot. And a second covers the top 10 in the field. And that will be SQ1 done and dusted as we set the grid for the sprint race. And it's Fernando Alonso out in 16th, Esteban Ocon in 17th, Yuki Tsunoda 18th, Lance Stroll 19th, and Zhou Guanyu 20th and last.
So confirmation there that Aston Martin are really in a bit of a pickle at the moment. They've reverted to their Japanese Grand Prix floor this weekend. That was in April, the Japanese Grand Prix. They introduced a new floor in Austin 2 races ago. They've abandoned it already for this weekend, and Alonso doesn't get through. He's in 15th place and a long way off the pace. They've just not been able to put any effective development on that car this year.
They qualified 3rd and 4th here last year for the Grand Prix. How much can change in a year? How do you lose your way that quickly and in that dramatic a fashion? Because there doesn't seem like there's any light at the end of the tunnel either for Aston Martin for the rest of this season at least.
I guess that's why they spent £30 million on Adrian Newey.
That's the big lie. But that's not for a couple of years.
I mean, they're not able to develop the car, are they? For 2 years in a row, they've started the season in one position and ended it way further back. And this is a bleak picture for Alonso particularly.
Well, I was happy with the lap, we just had no grip, man.
Okay, understood.
So that was Yuki Tsunoda saying he was happy with the lap, but no grip. Out-qualified by his teammate Lawson, who progresses through into SQ2. Lawson finished 12th.
So you said there was 1 second covering the top 10, which is true. I can see you straight away fact-checking yourself. It's true. But there's 2 tenths covering 2nd to 10th. Norris has 8 tenths of an advantage out front.
Mighty.
An absolutely blistering lap there from Lando. It's on the medium tyres. Everyone will stay on the medium tyres for SQ2, and McLaren are obviously completely hooked up on that tyre. Norris right at the end, decent track, but not that different to anyone else, and he has just set down a complete marker there. SQ3 will be different. They'll be back on the soft, and they've got to get on top of that tyre as well, but that's an absolutely huge marker by Norris.
Ominous first lap time, first session competitively for the McLaren driver. As the sound you're hearing is just another look at what's happened to Lewis Hamilton earlier in that session, and just trying to turn it in to the left-hander as you come into the middle section. Really loose on the back end of that Mercedes.
Yeah, he's had oodles of oversteer all day, and it was the same there in Pinarino, the bottom left-hander in the middle sector, turn 9, long left-hander, and the rear just stepping out on him. And Lewis only through in 13th in that session. Lance Stroll had a big understeer moment at turn 8, the corner just before it. You come through fully loaded through 6 and 7 Ferradura, the horseshoe, double right-hander, and it's easy to snatch an inside front and just wash wide with understeer, and that's what befell Lance Stroll out in 19th.
Well, indeed, we've eliminated our first 5 drivers. Fernando Alonso in 16th. The first time an Aston Martin has been out in the first part of sprint qualifying this year. Esteban Ocon behind in 17th. He's now qualified 17th for 3 of the 5 sprints this year, and continues to be out-qualified in the last 3 consecutive races by his teammate Pierre Gasly. Yuki Tsunoda 18th, having been 6th on the grid for the sprint here back in 2023. Just ahead of Lance Stroll in 19th, and Zhou Guanyu, another P20 for him. He's been the slowest qualifier in the last 7 race weekends, so Zhou and Sauber's struggles continue, although a mix between the garage. Valtteri Bottas just escaping through into 15th.
Yeah, a cool 2 seconds quicker than Zhou. So I don't know what has happened to Zhou there, but he's going to limp out of Formula One, really, isn't he? Having had a couple of kind of surprisingly solid seasons, really, from a man that I don't think too many people thought was going to be delivering too much. He's had some decent drives in his Formula One career, not going to be retained for next year, and it's a very tricky season for Sauber, and particularly for Zhou, who has been really on the receiving end of a hiding from Bottas in their teammate head-to-head.
Well, I wonder as well, though. I believe that Bottas has had the majority of any upgrades that are brought to that team, so I think this year Zhou Guanyu has been made to look a little worse than what he actually is. I wouldn't put him up there as a championship star driver, but I think he's a solid 3-season driver, and he's had his worth. But P20 for the Chinese racer with just a few rounds left. That second seat still undecided. Nico Hülkenberg takes one of those Sauber seats, but Bottas, along with Gabriel Bortoleto, Franco Colapinto, all in the running for that drive.
It's getting even darker overhead, and the wind's picked up slightly as well. It's actually picked up quite a lot. I wonder if there is going to be some drizzle in the air before the end of this sprint qualifying. You know who's just keeps being impressive in Formula One is Oliver Behrmann. Ahead of Nico Hülkenberg there. He had a blinding FP earlier on, the practice session. He was up in 3rd place. 7th and 8th, the 2 Hasses in that first part of qualifying. And Behrmann once again showing his natural talents. It's just so weird, his performances in F2 this year, where if you looked at Formula 2, you'd never put him in a Formula 1 car, but every time he jumps in, he's doing a stellar job.
In a way, it's a bit of a worry for how people value Formula 2 now, because I think Christian Horner is one of the team principals to say across this week, it really questions how you look at the form book in Formula 2 when you've got guys like Ollie Behrmann performing so well in Grand Prix with 2 different cars. Ferrari chucked in last minute, and Haas too.
In fairness, they haven't tried anyone higher up in the championship, have they? Everyone they're chucking in is, Behrmann was 15th, 16th, 17th in the championship earlier on in the season. Antonelli's now 6th and looks decent. Colapinto was 6th and looks good. Liam Lawson's not been in Formula 2 this year, but has looked good when he... Maybe the championship leaders of Formula 2 are going to be legendary generational talents, but they're not getting a chance.
Well, of course, we've skipped over the last 2 Formula 2 champions. Felipe Drugovich, of course, who's here in his reserve driver capacity, Brazilian, his home race. He was out in FP1 in Mexico last weekend, not being touted for any kind of drive in the near future. And Teo Porcher as well, despite his Sauber links, doesn't seem to be anywhere in the vicinity for an F1 drive next year or beyond. But that are the discussions that are going on off the track. Back onto the track, and we are back underway for SQ2 with this 10-minute session already down to 8 minutes and 34 seconds. Russell, the 2 McLarens, the 2 Ferraris, Hamilton, Gasly and Valtteri Bottas now joins that squad out onto the track. So 8 cars out on the circuit right now, and this is the sound of George Russell making his way through the left-hander of turn 4 on his first flyer.
Pretty much an even split then of cars wanting to go out straight away and wanting to wait. So the track evolution ramping up in that first part. I imagine there's a few drivers looking at the wind picking up and the dark skies overhead and thinking, let's get a time on the board. And that includes Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, the 2 Ferraris and the 2 Mercedes. But in the minority of 7 is the 2 Red Bulls who are waiting for the moment.
And just to demonstrate how much the conditions are changing, the track temperature's come down 5 degrees since the start of the session 15 or so minutes ago. That's incredible. I think it's going to be a wet evening in Sao Paulo.
Well, there was a 20% chance of rain coming into this session, but we know how quickly the conditions can change. Just remember back to last year and that huge black cloud over the circuit, making it almost feel like a night race as George Russell crosses the line for his first lap time on the board for this session. It's a 109.683 to go top. Bottas slots into second, but Norris is fastest of anybody in the first sector right now.
It's a good lap from Russell, that. That's only 2 tenths away from the time that Norris did to put a huge distance between himself and the rest of the field in the first part of qualifying. Norris is improving on this lap as he sweeps into the low-speed right-hander of Bico de Pato and descends the left-hander flat out over the brow and into the final corner. And he is putting the sectors together once again. Fastest in the first part, fastest in the second part, and he might be about to lower the benchmark here.
Lando Norris trying to continually close down the gap. 47 points coming into this weekend between himself and Max Verstappen, who tops the championship table, but topping SQ2 for the time being is indeed Lando Norris now. 109.063 for the Brit. Ahead of Russell as Charles Leclerc comes across the line in third, Gasly fourth, Bottas fifth, but Sainz now puts himself up as the lead Ferrari, behind Norris though in second, 4 tenths adrift of Norris.
That is all like for like on a medium tyre. Piastri is going to come through and be the last of those early runners to put a time on the board. Hamilton backed out of his lap and is only pushing now, so he's a little bit delayed, having done a slow lap. Don't know if that was a mistake or traffic for Lewis Hamilton, but once again Norris half a second clear of the field. That's all like for like on a new medium.
Just having a little look back at Russell, going out wide, finding the runoff curb, and there's a little bit of grass if you go a little bit too far, but he just about kept all 2 wheels on the right side of the white line. Andrew,
I'm just going to bring you a little bit of news. Charles Leclerc has been summoned to see the stewards later as a result of swearing in the Mexico City Grand Prix press conference. Remember, Max Verstappen had the same issue in Singapore and got basically served with a community service order. The drivers were very much not happy about that. They have been preparing a public letter, which hasn't seen the light of day yet. I can't imagine they're going to be any more enamoured by the fact that another one of their number has been called to the stewards for the same reason. It was an innocent swear word that Charles Leclerc used. He was describing that massive moment he had when he lost second place to Lando Norris, when he was talking about rescuing the car from the barriers. He just slipped out for him, and then he realised immediately what he'd done. He was like, oh no, I don't want to have the same thing as Max. It looks like he has.
The litter pickers of Sao Paulo are going to have a couple of celebrity guests.
Verstappen's had community service before, right? Well, didn't he have to go and be a steward in the Formula E race room at one point? So, we could have...
That was here when he
with Ocon,
gave
right?
Esteban Ocon a shove in what must have been 2018.
Ocon was
Parc
trying to
Fermé.
unlap himself, wasn't he, in the racing point?
Took out the race leader. Yeah, it wasn't a smart move from Esteban Ocon, but shoving him afterwards didn't turn out to be a smart move either from Max Verstappen, who's gone up to second place, 4 tenths away from Lando Norris.
Yeah, Lando Norris putting down a really good marker. Still waiting for lap times from the two Williams cars, Alex Albon and Franco Colapinto. Albon just coming to the end of the middle sector now, also awaiting Behrman and Hülkenberg, the two Haas cars, and the one remaining RB of Liam Lawson. The two Williams showing strong so far, actually. Colapinto once again getting within a tenth or two of his teammate, but what's it going to be over the line? Alex Albon will come across the line first, slots his Williams up into 8th spot ahead of Perez and Hamilton, who currently rounds out the top 10. Can Colapinto make those worse?
Turn 4 now, the car doesn't turn this wing setting.
So that's Max Verstappen saying turn 4, which is the medium speed left-hander at the end of the second DRS zone. The car's not turning, so Max has been playing around with the front wing setting, trying to add some to get the car to rotate and stop front locking, but then it's creating instability elsewhere on the circuit. So then you take a bit of that front wing out, you induce some front locking, which he struggled with earlier on, and you struggle with understeer, which Max never likes, and he's just voicing that over the radio, and that's something they can change very easily in the garage.
Right, final 3 minutes then of SQ2 as we continue to set the grid for the sprint race, which you can hear tomorrow afternoon on 5 Sports Extra from 5 to 2 in the afternoon. Right now we are into SQ2, where we will eliminate the slowest 5 drivers, so everybody from 11th down to 15th will be out of here, and it's Colapinto, Bottas at the moment, along with the two Haas cars of Behrman and Hülkenberg, and Liam Lawson in 15th. Behrman, Hülkenberg and Lawson yet to put a competitive lap time on the board. Heading out of the pits now. The top 3 are Norris, Verstappen and Sainz. They haven't come out of the pits yet. Still 2 minutes and 20 seconds on the board. Or do we think they're going to stay in the pits now, Jolie, until the end of this session?
Norris certainly can. Verstappen and Sainz 4 tenths further back probably can, but it's whether they're going to risk that or not. There's a few others that haven't emerged either yet, though. There's still time. Albon 8th, Perez 9th, Colapinto 11th, still in the pits. They'll leave and try and improve on their times. No times at all yet for the two Haas cars and Liam Lawson, all of which were pretty competitive in that first part of qualifying, so that will heap some pressure on Perez and Hamilton, who have to improve, otherwise they're going to be going out.
Well, Behrman has been competitive since FP1, finished in the top 3 for a man that was told, I think only today, that he was going to be in the car for both sessions, and now will race for the sprint tomorrow. If Kevin Magnussen is feeling well enough, he will be able to take to the car for qualifying for the Grand Prix, but right now Behrman putting in a good shift for Haas. Let's see if he can follow that through as he continues his excellent preparation for a full-time race seat with Haas next year, where his teammate will be Esteban Ocon. Right now, though, his teammate is Nico Hülkenberg. This is the sound of Behrman running down the Retto Aposta towards turn 4. Slam on the brakes, into the left-hander. Don't run out too wide. Track limits are watched like a hawk by the stewards. You go all 4 wheels over the white line, and your lap time will be deleted. I think Behrman just about kept it all right there.
Quite a cautious first sector, though, from Ollie Behrman. It was clean, but I think it was just slightly safe for him on the first braking point into the centre S. So he's got work to do through the middle sector. It's clean once again, as he said, using everything through turn 4 to see that Alago, the left-hander, and got right out onto the white line. But it was okay for Behrman, who sparks his way through into the final corner and now gets on the gas and heads up the hill. He's going to have a nice slipstream from someone just ahead of him. Flashes past is Lewis Hamilton, who's only just going to start his flying lap with 20 seconds left on the clock.
Hülkenberg pits it up to 9th, but Behrman had a brilliant middle sector and goes all the way up into 5th spot for Ollie Behrman. We're looking at eliminating the slowest 5 runners in this SQ2 session. Russell doesn't improve across the line, stays in 6th. Perez and Hamilton, the big names, currently down in 11th and 12th. Lawson will be the next car to come across the line. He gets himself up into 9th. That pushes Hülkenberg down.
Colapinto is out and Perez is out. He's in the pits and he's in 12th position. So it's whether Lewis Hamilton now can dig himself out from 13th. Hülkenberg is also gone. It's Hamilton or Albon.
No, we're not going to make it. So box.
Hugh Bird, Perez's engineer on the radio, is there saying we're not going to make it. Has there been a miscommunication with the times there for Sergio Perez? Piastri across the line in second. This is the sound of Lewis Hamilton. He's had a good first sector. He's currently down in 13th spot. Leclerc puts himself up into third. What is this going to be for Hamilton, who rises up over the crest through the slight left-hander? The DRS line comes. The rear wing flap opens up to the line. Hug the inside as close as you can to the pit wall. It's not enough for Lewis Hamilton. It's 11th only, and by less than a tenth of a second, the 7-time champion is knocked out of sprint qualifying, down in 11th.
Behind Albon and behind Liam Lawson, who's through in 9th position. Hamilton's just had a rough run through this qualifying. He had looked okay at the start of practice earlier on, didn't do any soft tyre running, and when the fuel's come out of it in qualifying here, he's not had the pace. In the middle sector, he lost an absolute heap on that lap, 6/10 away from the McLaren of Oscar Piastri, who's the fastest man through that part of the circuit, and he's out in 11th. And Perez, I think you're right, didn't get out to start a final flying lap.
That will be a big issue within the team there at Red Bull, when Perez hasn't looked so far off the pace compared to how he was in Mexico. It's looked like a slightly better weekend, but he once again doesn't get through into the final part of a qualifying session. Out goes Hamilton in 11th, Hülkenberg in 12th, Perez 13th, ahead of Franco Colapinto in 14th, and Valtteri Bottas 15th. Rounds out those eliminated drivers from the second part of sprint qualifying.
I think Colapinto also didn't get a final flying lap in, so both the 14th man and 13th man, Colapinto and Perez, were not given a crack to try and get back through. Hülkenberg will be disappointed in 12th, especially when he looks up and sees his teammate for the day through and up into 7th.
That is mighty from Behrman.
He had a really juicy slipstream on the run up the hill and over the line, which would have given him certainly a tenth or two, possibly a little more even. He was 3 and a bit tenths ahead of Hülkenberg. He is looking like the real deal, Ollie Behrman.
And what a year to have to build up to a full-time race seat next season. We're getting quite used to seeing Oliver Behrman out there on track. Ended that in 7th. Good result as well for Liam Lawson, crucially out-qualifying Yuki Tsunoda, and Sergio Perez in the Red Bull continuing to make Lawson's case for the top drive next year.
Yeah, Lawson doing himself a world of good. Every time he gets the chance to drive in the RB right now, the bosses are looking to see if he could potentially be a Verstappen replacement. That's why he's been brought in now. And when Tsunoda's out, saying that's all he could do in 18th, and Liam Lawson is into the final part of qualifying, up in 9th, that's pretty much the best he can do.
Wait, who was that? Was it Checo or Max?
Don't worry, please.
That was Lawson coming through turn 4 in his lap, and it was Sergio Perez who was in the way. Let's not forget, these two had a run-in in the Mexican Grand Prix as well.
They've got beef. Lawson is starting to have a bit of beef with Perez, Alonso. I think Lawson's saying that he doesn't want to. Lawson's saying he doesn't want to cause problems, but he's not here to make friends.
Well, he's made that pretty clear, hasn't he? 2 race weekends and 2 rucks that he's got himself into with some of the most established names in the game.
Did you ever have any... You had a run-in with Alonso at one point, didn't you?
Alonso's been around for over 20 years. Everyone's had a run-in with Alonso, yeah.
Not Andrew Benson, though. He's never.
No. Andrew Benson's the only person in the Formula 1 paddock that's never had a run-in with Fernando Alonso.
Did you come out of Formula 1 with any sort of solid driver friends that you'd met in Formula 1 or in the run-up to?
No.
Categoric no.
Well, it's not play school.
You're not here to make friends.
You're in elite sport. You're not there to make friends. I was not interested in that. The drivers are very chummy now. A lot of them live in Monaco. I never lived in Monaco. I was never in the next door apartment to anyone that I was taking the track with, and I was not. It's not happy families. This is sport. I like a rivalry, and I like to say goodbye on a Sunday night and not see them again until the next race.
There you have it there, the words of the former Renault Formula 1 driver Jolyon Palmer, who was never there to make friends. Ollie Bearman certainly ruffling feathers in terms of his performances, looking absolutely brilliant out there. Finished that session in 7th. It was Norris, Piastri, though, the two McLarens. It certainly looks like it is advantage McLaren right now, with Norris having that little bit extra in tow. Leclerc finished 3rd. Verstappen in 4th, splitting the two Ferraris. Gasly also, good result for the Alpine driver, making it through once again into the final part of a qualifying session. Gasly's been on a good run of form in the last few races. 2 top 10 qualifyings from him.
Yeah, he's putting it in now, isn't he? In Mexico and in Austin, the Alpine upgrade seems to be working nicely in the hands of Pierre Gasly anyway. And Alpine have still got something to fight for in the championship. Currently on their most miserable season since I drove for them in 2016. And they're trying to get out of that. They don't want that stat to continue. So they're in 9th, gunning for 8th.
Indeed. And actually, haven't they just been, Andrew, you'll know more on this, it's probably not the biggest news story, but haven't they just been fined about $400,000 as well for an engine cost cap issue?
Good point. Yeah, we haven't talked about that today, have we? Yeah, both. So Alpine fined $400,000 and Honda fined $600,000 for procedural breaches of the engine cost cap. Now, it's a little bit complicated, but the cost cap was introduced for the first time last season, 2023. But it only applies to costs for 2026. They're trying to keep everything under control for that, so your current spending doesn't count. Still, they've been naughty boys, Honda and naughty boys and girls, I should say, Honda and Alpine. And it's kind of ironic, isn't it? Someone pointed it out to me on Twitter yesterday that Alpine have been fined for a procedural breach of regulations for which they're not going to make an engine.
Is a procedural breach just sort of not filing your
paperwork?
It's admin, isn't it? It's paperwork incorrectly filed.
Paperwork gets the better of them sometimes.
Yes.
I'm thinking
Oscar
Piastri.
No,
rather than myself.
Was your contract all fine? No,
no issues.
Not towards the end, there was there. Okay, well, we'll park the admin chat there for the moment.
Did you get your money back?
No issues.
I thought you just say no comment there for a minute. Right. Final part of qualifying for the sprint underway. 7 minutes and 15 seconds in counting. We've got 2 McLarens, 2 Ferraris, 1 Red Bull of Max Verstappen, 1 Alpine of Pierre Gasly, 1 Haas of Bearman, and 1 RB of Liam Lawson, scrapping it out. And right now, I mean, Jolene, you have to say the momentum and the advantages with Norris. He just seems to be able to find a few tenths over everybody at the moment, including his teammate.
And now they're on the soft tyre, so it'll be interesting to see if it translates. It's the final piece of the puzzle, really, for McLaren, who clearly have the best car in this session on the medium tyre. Will it translate to the soft? Typically, you have different tyre preparation. The soft is a grippier tyre, but it can be more fragile. It can be harder to get into the working window sometimes. And normally, you'd maybe crank on a bit of front wing to take the most of a bit more rear grip than you get front. So let's see. First flying lap now.
Piastri, who has plunged his way down through the centre S's, arced himself round the left-hander of turn 3, down the straight, the Retta Oposta, towards the braking zone of the left-hander of turn 4, run out to the curbs, then chuck it into the left-hand kink that seals off the double left-hander before you approach turn number 7. Almost a never-ending series of corners here, especially when you get into the middle sector. But through the first sector, it's Norris with the advantage over his teammate Piastri. Although Piastri's gone out there on the medium tyre, Norris is stuck on the soft.
Norris is a good 2 tenths up. They're all on the soft because they have to be now. So
that's just an issue, sorry, with the graphics there.
The graphics have had an issue. There's certainly a red-walled soft tyre on Oscar Piastri, who's very wide out of the final corner. That'll be tight to track limits for a man that has had a couple of track limits violations in qualifying this year already. We'll have to see a replay of that. He drives to the line, and Norris is going plenty quicker so far.
Piastri, though, goes to the top as the first time across the board, fastest of anybody in the final sector. He's the first one out there, but what will Norris do? He's fastest of anybody overall in this gambit from Lando Norris, a 1:08.928 ahead of teammate Piastri.
So Albon's on a lap as well, but it's interesting that McLaren have gone out so early, Joe. You know, they kind of try and do 2 runs, do you think, on this short circuit?
I was surprised. There are 3 cars on the circuit. There's less than 5 minutes to go, so this is a shortened 8-minute SQ3. But I'm surprised that they have gone so early when theoretically the track will be at its best later on. The rubber will go down, especially now they're on the soft tyres. You get a bigger load of rubber being deposited. So everyone else is waiting for that, and the McLarens have gone early. Norris has done a decent time. He's only 1/10 quicker than he was on the medium in SQ2 as Albon comes through and is a clean second away from the lead McLaren. 3 cars on track, the rest waiting. Maybe they will go for another set of softs and use up something for tomorrow.
I think the Pirelli tyre data has had another meltdown after last weekend as well, because it's all over the shop. Everybody should be out there on the soft, but it's saying that only Albon and Norris were out there. So Piastri then, I'm sure that'll update as the session goes by, hopefully, but it is mandated. You should be on the soft tyre in this final session. Did Piastri, though, get all 4 wheels over the line, kept the front left, Jolien, just in check.
Yeah, he was okay. I don't know if it's actually possible to go off the track there without touching the grass, and Oscar did. It was the front left that was on the line, so it was pinpoint for Piastri.
Albon, the third fastest out of the 3 times we've seen, a 1:10.0. The first time Albon's actually made it to the final parts of sprint qualifying in any sprint this year. He's been knocked out of the majority of them so far, but trawling out of the pits comes the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. Gets up to speed and makes his way down towards turn 4 on an outlap now. Leclerc out there, Gasly, Behrman, Lawson all out on track. Verstappen and Russell still yet to emerge from the pits, and as I say that, I think Max Verstappen has just emerged, so I expect Russell not to be long behind.
And the 2 McLarens are going again, so they're having 2 bites at the cherry here, which is an all guns blazing approach to a sprint. They're having to save a set of tyres in tomorrow's qualifying. They obviously think they've got the pace with which to do that around a short circuit, so they've got an advantage here. Both drivers have done a banker on the softs. They've got times on the board that are 1 and 2 out of a 3-car race at the moment. And with 1 flying lap for everyone, we've got 9 cars on the circuit because Albon has not done the same.
Behrman embarks on a flying lap down through the centre S's, and he's thrown it all away immediately, Jolien, coming out of the second S and chugging along the curbs.
That'll be probably the lap gone there from Ollie Behrman. He's 8/10 away from Norris, and yeah, that'll be him toast at the very first corner in SQ3. Very good job through the first 2 parts of qualifying, but he's got to go some way to be anything other than 10th there. Just washed wide in turn 2, kept too much gas on, bounced over the curb, jumped out of the throttle thereafter, and would lose time all the way down the straight to turn 4.
120 points still available this season, 34 points available this weekend. 8 points go to the winner of the sprint race, all the way down to 1 point for 8th place. So for Norris to try and secure pole position for the sprint will be absolutely crucial. If he can have his teammate Oscar Piastri there with him to provide him help, to provide a gap to Max Verstappen, will prove mightily handy.
The Ferraris are not at the races through the first sector. They're both 2/10 down on Norris, but it means they're fairly close to Oscar Piastri to at least get provisionally onto the front row. This is the sound of Carlos Sainz dropping down the hill now from Maguglio, and he's still 1/4 second down on Norris, so 2.5 tenths from Sainz, jumping on the gas, much cleaner than Piastri on the exit of Gunsao, and now he'll drive to the line, and he's 400ths up on his teammate just behind him.
Behrman has his lap time deleted, so we'll start towards the bow ahead of the top 10. Sainz across the line, 3rd fastest, can't match Lando Norris's pace. What about Charles Leclerc, the next Ferrari over the line, tries to hug that inside to shorten the distance, splits the McLarens. Leclerc puts himself up into 2nd, but Piastri and Norris are both having another bite at the cherry, and it's Piastri who is fastest of anybody in the middle sector.
Verstappen starts his flying lap now as well and is very quick through the first sector, even with Norris and close with Piastri.
Piastri to the line and sets provisional pole for the sprint. A 1:08.899 from Piastri, but we are looking for times once again from Norris, from Verstappen. Verstappen on a decent lap, personal best in the first sector. He's currently all the way down in 8th, coming through the middle sector now, looking a little bit tidier.
Norris's lap is average, and he's not switched to a new set of tyres.
He's come in. I think he's come in.
That's it for Norris. It's whether Verstappen now can split the McLarens at the front of the grid.
Norris is coming to the pits. He will not finish his lap time, and that will mean he will stay in second. Can Max Verstappen find anything and put himself to the top of the board in this qualifying for the sprint race? Verstappen round the final corner, sparks flying from the underside of that Red Bull. It's only enough for fourth. He splits the Ferraris. Verstappen fourth, but what about George Russell in the Mercedes behind Sainz in sixth? And that will be the end of qualifying in this final part for the sprint. And in the end, by less than half a tenth of a second, didn't get that second lap from Lando Norris. But it's Oscar Piastri, his teammate, who benefits.
Interesting. A split in the strategies from McLaren then. Piastri going for new tyres twice. Norris trying to go again on a used set, didn't improve. And Piastri has the sprint pole by 0.03 of a second. But McLaren are in the pound seat here.
It's advantage McLaren, and it's the F1 sprint pole for Oscar Piastri. He'll start alongside his teammate Norris. Here is the Australian.
That is everyone. Oscar, you are P1. Good job, mate.
Woo! Nice.
Nice. That's all he has to say on that for Oscar Piastri. Ahead of Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc third, Max Verstappen fourth, Carlos Sainz fifth, Russell sixth, Gasly, brilliant result for the Alpine driver in seventh, ahead of Liam Lawson, Alex Albon in ninth for Williams, and Ollie Behrman, who messed up his final lap and then had it deleted anyway, 10th and last, but still a good effort for the man who was subbed in for Kevin Magnussen this morning. He will start the sprint race, Will Oliver Behrman, from 10th. And that is the roar from the crowds for Oscar Piastri. Gets out of his car, quick wave to the fans before he heads over to be weighed. But this is still good news for Lando Norris. He's got his teammate for company on the front row. Yes, he's not the lead McLaren, but he's got Verstappen at least one car in between himself.
And he's got clearly the fastest car. McLaren really looked unassailable out front. Piastri having two sets of tyres there to really stamp their authority with a guaranteed 1-2. Otherwise, Leclerc on one set was actually ahead of Piastri, but they used that second set, got Piastri to pole position, and McLaren on a Friday have had a great day. But Max Verstappen fourth, we know he'll go attacking on the first lap tomorrow.
Well, for Oscar Piastri, it's his second career sprint pole, and of course his first back in Qatar last year. He managed to convert it to the win, and he'll have prime position for tomorrow's sprint race, which you can hear in full on 5 Sports Extra with all of us live, build up from 5 to 2 in the afternoon ahead of lights out from 2 o'clock as Charles Leclerc takes off his helmet, rips off his balaclava as well. The rain that maybe was looming in the air seemed to stay away from us to get a frenetic end to that session. What could Norris have done if the strategy had been slightly different with running that second soft tyre run? Ahead of Verstappen, fourth, Sainz, the top 5.
So I'd have thought that'd be a driver call for Lando. He must have thought he hooked up the lap pretty well and wanted to save the set, risking that he'd be jumped by anyone else, but it makes his qualifying slightly more comfortable tomorrow.
According to the timing screens, the McLarens did reverse tyre strategy, so Piastri went out on used tyres for the first.
Let's hear, though, from our top 3 and our pole sitter with Naomi Schiff.
Oscar, massive congratulations. You've won the sprint qualifying session for the first time here in Interlagos. Very different track to last year, resurfaced, a lot more bumpy. Talk to us through it.
Yeah, it was a tricky session. I felt pretty comfortable at the start, and then the grip was really coming up a lot through the session. And yeah, I mean, with the track this year, it's kind of it's hard enough to see where you're going, let alone try and do a fast lap. So it's challenging out there, but no, happy to have qualified on pole for the sprint.
A blistering lap that sort of took us by surprise. The McLarens, you guys have been looking really strong, but you put in a lap right at the end. Did you just have something extra in the bag?
I mean, my first lap didn't feel amazing, and I knew that there was a few places to improve. And yeah, the second lap was good, and the tyres hung on. So no, very, very happy, and yeah, excited to be starting off P1.
Tomorrow's a race, obviously sprint race first thing in the morning. Tell us how you're going to approach it.
try and win. Obviously, that's the first thing. We'll see. It's going to be a very different kind of sprint to last year, I think, with the resurfacing. So we'll see what the temperature does, what the weather does. But starting from the best seat in the house. So we'll try and make sure it stays that way.
Awesome. Good luck tomorrow, Oscar.
Thank you. Cheers.
Well, there is your pole sitter, or the sound of, for the sprint race. Oscar Piastri, who makes it a McLaren front row for the sprint. Lando Norris in second. Charles Leclerc starts third ahead of Max Verstappen. Carlos Sainz, the top 5, ahead of Russell, Gasly, Lawson, Albon and Ollie Behrman, the top 10. Lewis Hamilton will start from 11th ahead of Nico Hulkenberg and Sergio Perez, with Franco Colapinto and Valtteri Bottas making up the top 15. Fernando Alonso down in 16th for Aston Martin, ahead of Esteban Ocon in the Alpine. Yuki Tsunoda 18th. Had a Lance Stroll and Zhou Guanyu 20th and last. As I say, you can hear the sprint race in full tomorrow afternoon on 5 Sports Extra from 1:55 with lights out from 2 o'clock. My thanks to Andrew Benson, to Jolyon Palmer. You can hear us preview the weekend properly and reflect a little on that sprint race as well on 5 Live tonight at 9 o'clock. So do join us for that one. But in the meantime, we shall see you for the sprint race tomorrow afternoon. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.